All right, so today we're going to be looking, let me turn the microphone on. Today we're going to be looking at Jesus teaches about being a servant. This is lesson 206 as we do the comparison of synoptic gospels. As we look at the new chart we have up here now, we're at line 181. Jesus teaches about serving others. Next week we have the two blind beggars. Then we have the wee little man, Zacchaeus. Then the king's 10 servants, and then the woman who breaks the perfume to anoint him. And then 186, about 4 or 5 weeks from now, will be with Jesus as he rides into Jerusalem on the donkey, starting his actual ministry in the city, which will last just about a week. So let's look at the scriptures. In Matthew chapter 20, verse 28 to 28. Then came to him the mother of Zebedee's children with her sons, worshiping him, and desiring a certain thing of him. And he said unto her, What wilt thou? She said unto him, Grant that these two my sons may sit, the one on thy right hand, the other on thy left hand. But Jesus answered and said, Ye know not what you ask. Are you able to drink of the cup that I shall drink of, and to be baptized with the baptism that I am baptized with? They say unto him, We are able. And he saith unto them, Ye shall drink indeed of my cup, and be baptized with the baptism that I am baptized with. But to sit on my right hand and on my left is not mine to give, but it shall be given to them for whom it is prepared of my Father. And when the 10 heard it, they were moved with indignation against the two brethren. But Jesus called them unto him and said, Ye know that the princes of the Gentiles exercise dominion over them, and they that are great exercise authority upon them. But it shall not be so among you, but whosoever will be great among you, let him be your minister. Whosoever will be chief among you, let him be your servant. Even as the Son of Man came not to be ministered unto, but to minister and to give his life a ransom for many. And James and John in Mark chapter 10, a parallel passage, the sons of Zebedee came unto him, saying, Master, we would that thou shouldst do for us whatsoever we shall desire. And he said unto them, What would you that I should do for you? They said unto him, Grant unto us that we may sit one on the right hand and the other on thy left hand in thy glory. But Jesus said unto them, Ye know not what you ask. Can you drink of the cup that I drink of, and be baptized with the baptism that I am baptized with? And they said unto him, We can. And Jesus said unto them, Ye shall indeed drink of the cup that I drink of, and with the baptism that I am baptized with shall you be baptized. But to sit on my right hand and on my left hand is not mine to give, but it shall be given to them for whom it is prepared. And when the 10 heard it, they began to be much displeased with James and John. But Jesus called them to him and said unto them, Ye know that they which are accounted to rule over the Gentiles exercise lordship over them, and their great ones exercise authority upon them. But it shall not be among you. For whosoever will be great among you shall be your minister, and whosoever of you will be the chiefest shall be servant of all. For even the Son of Man came not to be ministered unto, but to minister and to give his life a ransom for many. All right, so as we look at this, I title this Jesus Teaches to be a Servant. We want to look first off at Proverbs 15:13. The fear of the Lord is the instruction of wisdom, but before honor is humility. Pride is a sin that consumes this world today. Jesus is continuing his teaching the disciples about pride and humility, and today with his response to the request made by James and John, he really gives them a deep theological lesson. But from the New Testament, we can see this thing of humility is a familiar passage. Colossians 3:12 says, Put on, therefore, as the elect of God, holy and beloved, bowels of mercy, kindness, humbleness of mind, meekness, and long-suffering. In 1 Peter chapter 5, verse 5, Likewise, you younger, submit yourselves unto the elder, all of you be subject one to another, and be clothed with humility, for God resisteth the proud, but giveth grace to the humble. Before honor is humility is a very important principle that the scriptures teach. And as we'll see today, these disciples needed to learn it because they were out there and they sought self-glory. We could substitute our names for James and John in this very easily. Remember that the disciples basically forsook all and followed Jesus. And a couple of weeks ago, they had seen the rich young ruler come and want to know how to earn eternal life. And he went away lost and sad. And Peter had basically said after that, what's in it for us? We've left everything. What's in it for us? They were given some powerful promises after that involved in following him. There was a kingdom to be inherited, eternal life to be inherited, a glorious promise of a reigning in that kingdom, sitting on the 12 thrones, as well as receiving 100-fold of everything that they had given up. And that stuck in their mind like glue. Following that, Jesus is walking along and teaching them about his suffering as he pulls them aside. They didn't get it. It went right on by. So they should have understood their service to Christ to be a service of love without any thought of receiving anything. That's the humble heart, seeking no glory, no esteem, no honor, no promotion, no popularity. But as we will see, that was not on their hearts as they headed towards Jerusalem and the Passover. As far as this thing that's going on, all sin feeds pride. All temptations, all solicitations to do evil of any kind and every kind are based upon self-gratification. The reason a temptation is because you want to do it. It appeals then to your personal fulfillment, your personal satisfaction, your personal desire, and therefore the right you have to do what you want. That's pride, which is an expression of your own pride and self-love. So every time we sin, don't look at the anger or the lie or whatever you did. Look at the fact that that was pride, selfish desire. You did it because it's your right to do what you want to do. These apostles were ordinary men, but they were pride-filled sinners. So starting with the passage there in Mark 10, and James and John, sons of Zebedee, came unto him, saying, Master, we would that thou shouldst do for us whatsoever we shall desire. Matthew starts, then came to him the mother of Zebedee's children with her sons, worshiping him and desiring a certain thing of him. So he tells them he's going to die and rise again. They have no questions about it. Just focused on the kingdom and the glory. They never asked him any more about his death, of going up to Jerusalem. They just stood there and nodded their head, okay, and then they go on. So what we have here, there's an inner circle, Peter, James, and John. And that's why this is James and John here. Peter is the one who said, what's in it for us? James and John show up here with this bizarre request. James and John and Peter were all at the Transfiguration. They'd seen some of the glory that was to come. And in Mark, they act like all of us did at one time in our youth, in our small time, wee time, asking our parents for something. Just say yes before I tell you what I want. Anybody not do that? Please, Dad, just say yes. Just say yes. Why? The fear there is that they will tell you what they want first. If they do that, there's not a chance that you're going to say yes. They already know the answer is going to be no. So this is kind of James and John are very childish in the way they ask this. So this next scene on the road up to Jerusalem from Jericho is the arrival of James and John and their mother. Matthew says the mother was there. All right, so this woman, who is she? Well, she's at the crucifixion. Matthew calls her the mother of the sons of Zebedee. Mark calls her Salome, so that was her name. And then John calls her the sister of Jesus' mother. So she's Jesus' aunt. That makes James and John his cousins. It's getting very personal. This is a family deal in this request. The boys get the mom to go up there, Aunt Salome, and ask Jesus for this special treatment. They are sure that they are certainly above and beyond the rest of these men. They're special. They've got close ties. They're part of the inner circle. And the thing is she didn't ask for anything for herself because her sons being honored would give her the glory she needed. But before we trash them too badly, let's look at how they came from Matthew. They came worshiping him. The word there that's in the King James, worship, doesn't fully describe the action. We think of worship as maybe standing up and raising our hands or giving praise, but the word there means to kiss like a dog licking his master's hands, to fawn or crouch, or to prostrate oneself, to do reverence. Gill says she came in a very submissive manner to him, either bowed unto him or kneeled before him. This is a strong word. She came and they worshiped. They gave him the honor and respect that he was due. Mark says, and he said unto them, what would you that I should do for you? To their foolish question of answer yes before we tell you what we want. He wouldn't give them an answer, a carte blanche approval. And Matthew's response to the mother was, what wilt thou? She said unto him, grant that these my two sons may sit, the one on thy right hand, the other on thy left hand, in thy kingdom. They said unto him, pretty much, they talked about this going up here, Mom, let's go talk to Jesus and get this glory. Grant unto us that we may sit one on the right hand and the other on the left hand in thy glory. All right, the word there for grant is not just a mild request. It's a word for authority, order that these my two sons, you give the command. You are the Messiah. In other words, they've got the right theology about who he is. You give this order and it will be. They were expected, in Barnes' commentary, they expected that he would reign on the earth with great pomp and glory. They anticipated that he would conquer as a prince and a warrior. They wished to be distinguished in the days of his triumph. To sit on the right hand or the left hand of a prince was a token of confidence and the highest honor granted to his friends. They're thinking he's going to take over. We're going to Jerusalem. He's going to overthrow them. And we want to be honored as his cousins to sit on his right hand and his left hand as people come by to pay homage to him. They're seeking self-glory. They're seeking promotion, honor, and esteem. This is an arrogant overconfidence. These guys didn't need any self-help on self-esteem, that think more highly of themselves than they should. The contrast, Peter was always getting in trouble with his mouth. He blurted out the first thing that came to mind. These guys quietly come up and request this great honor. Sometimes it's a virtue to keep your mouth shut and not open it and let people know what you're really thinking. What was these guys' nickname? What did Jesus call them? Sons of thunder. They were bold, they're brash, but at the right time, they would pronounce judgment, call down fire on people. But here they quietly go up and request this. From MacArthur's commentary, he says the positive here, they not only believed in Jesus as a Savior, but they believed in Jesus as the Messiah. And they actually believed his kingdom was coming and he would reign in glory. That's some good theology. That is very good theology behind the request, but the request was a sin of pride. And he says to them in Mark 10, you know not what you ask. Same response there in Matthew. And then he asks them this question, can you drink of the cup that I drink of and be baptized with the baptism that I am baptized with? With gentleness, he asked them if they had thought about what they were asking and what was ahead. Then he tells them they haven't, and then tells them what he faces. This cup. Can you drink of this cup? It's an Old Testament idiom meaning fully absorbing something, fully experiencing something, taking it all in. In Isaiah chapter 51, verse 17, Awake, awake, stand, O Jerusalem, who has drunk at the hand of the Lord the cup of his fury. Thou hast drunken the dregs of the cup of trembling and wrung them out. It goes on down, you get to verse 22. Thus saith the Lord, thus saith thy Lord the Lord, and thy God that pleadeth the cause of his people. Behold, I have taken out of thy hand the cup of trembling, even the dregs of the cup of my fury. Thou shalt no more drink it again. But I will put it in the hands of those that afflict thee, which have said to thy soul, bow down, that we may go over. And thou hast laid thy body on the ground, and as a street to them they went over. In other words, they walked on you. This is all throughout the Old Testament. In Psalm 75:8, for the hand of the Lord there is a cup. For in the hand of the Lord there is a cup, and the wine is red. It is full of mixture, and he poureth out the same. But the dregs thereof, all the wicked of the earth shall wring them out and drink them. This was the fury that was coming, the baptism of fury. This is not a Christian baptism here. This baptism is immersion into the Lord's suffering. Immersion into, plunged into, submerged, to go all the way under and suffer, to be drowned in persecution and ultimate martyrdom. That's what he's telling them, to be baptized with the baptism, to be immersed in the suffering that's coming to me. Just told you about my death. We're going to Jerusalem. I'm going to be persecuted. I'm going to be crucified. They said unto him, we're able. Verse 39 of Mark 10, and they said unto him, we can. We can. Arrogant overconfidence. He says to them, ye shall indeed drink of the cup that I drink of, and with the baptism that I am baptized withal shall you be baptized. This is typical human pride. It assumes that it can accomplish anything. But in this spiritual dimension, it's not good. Some of us have excessive confidence. That's not what we need. If you think you can do it in your own strength, you can't. Peter was bold. Peter was confident. Jesus says, you're all going to desert me. And he says, well, everybody may forsake you, but I'll never forsake you. And before the cock crowed, he's already starting to deny him. Confident. I mean, this is a guy who took a sword against a whole garrison and started swinging it at one of the guy's heads to cut it off. He wasn't aiming for the ear, but turn around and by himself, his confidence is gone. When Jesus was taken prisoner, they all fled but John and Peter. Peter followed afar off and John went with him. Matthew 20:23, ye shall drink the cup, drink indeed of my cup and be baptized with the baptism that I am baptized with. But to sit on my right hand and on my left is not mine to give, but it shall be given to them for whom it is prepared of my Father. Jesus here gives them some prophecy. You shall drink indeed of my cup. MacArthur's commentary for James he's the first martyr. For John, he's the last martyr. James' martyrdom had his head cut off. It came fast, soon, and sudden. For John, he was a slow, agonizing, disappointing death as an exile at the end of the century on the Isle of Patmos. So of the 12, you had the first and last right here that Jesus said, you shall indeed drink of that cup, be baptized with my suffering. The time came when they were faithful. John was beheaded in Acts chapter 12, verse 2, and John was tortured and exiled to Patmos in Revelation 1:9 for the sake of Christ. The first and the last who died because of the gospel. MacArthur says they did drink of the cup. They couldn't have drunk it all as Jesus did, but they tasted that same cup. They knew the fellowship of his sufferings, if not the fullness of them. Here, as this passage, Jesus is embracing his submission to his Father in his incarnation. When he says to them, it's not mine to give, but it shall be given to them for whom it is prepared of my Father. It's not a point to be fixed now by him as a man, according to his own will, as who should reign with him in the kingdom of heaven. That's from Gill's commentary. God the Father is the one who gives the ultimate glory. It's his decision to whomever he has prepared that. So we could do all kinds of speculating on who will be there. People like Mother Teresa, people like the apostles. I mean, you could take all kinds of illustrations of people who have suffered. There's not going to be anybody there that's not suffered greatly for the cause of Christ, who's not been humble, been not filled with pride, but done it for the motive of all the glory to be given to the Lord. All right, so now we move from the carnal thinking to the spiritual 10. Not. And when the 10 heard it, they began to be much displeased with James and John. Matthew says, and they were moved with indignation against the two brethren. The word there means to be greatly inflicted, indignant. This is not righteous indignation, though, because they're guilty of the same thing. The rest of the disciples resented James and John for their attempt to gain the advantage over the others in pursuing the honor that they wanted. They all wanted that glory. When you get over to Luke chapter 22, verse 24 to 27, they're at the Last Supper, and as he's talking, they're arguing about who's going to be the greatest. They needed this lesson over and over again about humility. They just had a hard time humbling themselves. They're very competitive. That's not bad in sports, but in the spiritual standing and ministry, it's not good. So it's time for this lesson. If you looked at what's taken place, Jesus has brought them along to this point, and he called them to him, and he said to them, ye know that they which are accounted to rule over the Gentiles exercise lordship over them, and their great ones exercise authority upon them. Matthew said the princes of the Gentiles exercise dominion. The word there, kataurio, is to lord against, to control, to subjugate. Translated, exercise dominion over, overcome, be lord over, exercise lordship over. It's a very strong word to gain mastery, to subdue, to function as a despot, an autocratic ruler, a dictator. The word there for exercise authority, katexousidazo, is to have and wield full privilege over. Translated 2 times in Matthew and Mark here. It's to throw your weight around. It's the idea of vaunting their power. They were big. You submit to me. I mean, it's like they exercise this authority like a king or dictator would. And then Jesus says, verse 43 in Mark, but so shall it not be among you. But whosoever will be great among you shall be your minister. And Matthew says, but it shall not be among you, but whosoever will be great among you, let him be your minister. Here we see the standard is different that Jesus demands from his disciples. The first word there is but. It's a primary participle. It shows the contrast that's going to follow. These people exercise this authority and lordship, abuse it, but it shall not be among you. Another key word there, ou. A primary word, the absolute negative adverb, no or not. No, it shall not be you. No, negative, not going to happen. And then you have the second but, Allah, contrary-wise. Contrast, positive, absolute, negative, it will not happen. Contrary-wise, this is what it will be like. This is who you will be. This is what you should be. Whosoever will be great among you, let him be your minister. Jesus doesn't condemn ambition here, only the wrong motive. A lot of times people say, well, you shouldn't be ambitious and goal setting and pushing, but that's not what Jesus is saying. Whosoever will be great among you, let him be your minister. In other words, don't let him be your Lord. The pagan approach works in the world, but it doesn't work in the kingdom of God. The great are not those who climb their way to the top, who manipulate their way to the top, who abuse their way to the top, who demand their way to the top. If you go to the corporate world, the dog-eat-dog mental attitude is what is out there. People do everything they can to get ahead. But he says you must be a servant, not a demanding dictator, expecting everyone to meet your needs. The word you there in the New Testament times was a secular word. Must be a minister. It's the word that we also get deacon from. Deaconos, a waiter, an attendant. It's like somebody who's doing a menial task, like a waiter on a table in a restaurant. Doesn't take a whole lot of high educational training to do that. You're picking up the dishes and putting food down and just cleaning the table. You would hire a deacon, MacArthur in his commentary, to clean up your yard, take away your trash, serve a meal, collect the garbage, do some kind of menial job. It's not a degrading term, but someone hired to do the unskilled kind of things that are needed to be done. And here's the thing, this word is taken out of paganism. It's a secular word, and it was sanctified, and it was made the most dominant word in the New Testament to speak of the service of Christians. To humbly serve, to minister, to do what nobody else wanted to do. To not be filled with pride, think higher of themselves, but to humble themselves. Then he goes on and says, and whosoever you will be chiefest shall be servant of all. The word there, prostos, foremost, to be chief, to be first, to be the highest. If you want to be that great one in the ministry, you have to be a servant, doulos. It's a slave. It's not a pretty picture. It's the one who is owned, who's a slave, has no freedom, has no self-will, does what they're told to do. Words matter here. Jesus could have used many other words instead of the word there, minister, that have a higher, exalted meaning or position. Prince, a couple others of high esteem. But no, he picks one that does the menial task, doulos. God is looking for those who come to serve. And he closes this lesson with the only example that really matters, and that's his own example. For even the Son of Man came not to be ministered unto, but to minister and to give his life a ransom for many. Even as the Son of Man came not to minister, to be ministered unto, but to minister and to give his life a ransom for many. That's from Matthew, or from Mark, and then from Matthew. All right, the first one there, first word in Mark 4 is a primary participle, properly assigning a reason. It's used in an argument, explanation, or intensification. For the Son of Man came. The reason he came was not to be ministered unto, but to minister. The not there, came not, is again that absolute negative. He came not to be treated as a Lord, but waited on. Jesus was a supreme example of a servant leadership. The King of Kings and Lord of Lords relinquished his privileges and gave his life as a selfless sacrifice in serving others. He came not to be ministered unto, but to minister, to give his life a ransom. The word there, ransom, lutron, a redemptive price. It's a price that's paid to free a slave. To give his life for. A ransom for, ante. Opposite, instead of, because of. Translated, in the room of. In the place of this slave, he's giving his life. And even as, when it starts in Matthew there, even as the Son of Man came, the even as in Matthew, those two words mark him as an example. He is the example for us. Most kings demand to be served. This king came to serve. He paid the price for our sin to release us. We were all in bondage to sin, a slave to sin. He paid the price to ransom us from that slavery. Matthew Henry's commentary says they must be like the Master himself. It is very fit that they should, that while they were in the world, they should be as he was when he was in the world. For to both the present state is a state of humiliation, the crown and glory were reserved for both in the future state. They needed to have their attitude changed. The motive for what they wanted to do was pride, self-glorification. And Jesus is saying, you want to serve, you want to minister, you do it because you surrender your will, just as he prayed in the garden, not my will, but thine be done. He was humble and surrendered his will to the Father. I got two comments, then we'll close. This one's from MacArthur's commentary. Someone has, I think, well written that there's a new cross in evangelism today. It's a new cross. And it goes like this. The old cross slew men. The new cross entertains them. The old cross condemned. The new cross assures. The old cross destroyed confidence in the flesh. The new cross encourages it. The old cross brought tears and blood, and the new cross brings laughter. The flesh, smiling and confident, preaches and sings about the cross. Before that cross it bows, toward that cross it points with carefully staged historietics, but upon that cross it will not die. And the reproach of that cross it stubbornly refuses to bear. That's the problem today. Too many people do not want to humble themselves before the cross and submit their will to the Lord. They're asking the question that Peter asked, what's in it for me? It's not out of love for the sacrifice. Think about that as we go over there to do the communion, to take the Lord's Supper. He paid that ultimate sacrifice to redeem us. We owe all to him. And if anybody's ever heard of John Piper, I don't agree with his eschatology. He can stay here for the tribulation if he wants, but he is a very, very passionate preacher, witness about the gospel. And I mean, he is passionate.